I was able then to take that and go from one company to another, where I ended up actually as the second top executive of a company that was small, about 10 million when I joined in revenues, and was $1 billion in retail revenues when I left and we went public. If I can help younger people understand everything they see in the news or things maybe they've learned in college maybe aren't quite what they seem to be, that there is opportunity, we live in a great country, this is a great industry, it's a great business. If somehow I can help them do that and I profit from that, I'm okay with that. I feel good about it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today, we've got a guy by the name of Brian Mahoney on the show. And Brian Mahoney actually has quite the interesting story. He was a corporate executive for a long time, a publicly traded billion-dollar company, I believe.
That's right.
And did a bunch of really, really cool stuff in kind of the world of, I guess we can call it corporate America. And, transitioning into entrepreneurship and now wholesaling real estate and buying, multiple franchises to wholesale real estate. And really interesting story that you have, Brian. And I just appreciate you taking the time and being on the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you
Glad
so
to see you. I know so much about you and I have friends that you do business with. And so I've enjoyed our short conversations and time we've had together. So thanks for having me. It's
great. Of course.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and we're doing a deal or two right now, I think, as well, which is really cool. So
I think we have a couple going right this second.
Yeah, we sure do, which is really awesome. So for people watching and listening, I'd love just for a moment to go back and talk about this this corporate America thing. I mean, you have quite the resume, I feel like, when it comes to what you did in that world. So walk me through that. I mean, how'd you end up there?
Great question. First, because I really started more entrepreneurial. So my career, quite a while ago, obviously at this point, I started knocking doors and cold calling, and I was entrepreneurial. And so I did that, and I actually got into a direct selling business. I'd go door to door, get in folks' homes, sell them a product, and I did that. And I thought, well, I'll get in this business for, a month and make a few $100s. Back in the time, minimum wage was like $1.40 an hour, so I couldn't make any money. So somebody offered me $100 every time I sold this product, and so I got into it. I started cold calling, started knocking doors, did it. I thought I'd stay in a month, maybe two, get some money and get out, and 10 years later I was out. So I was an entrepreneur. And so I was still a young man at that time, and I got a call from a friend, and that began my corporate world. So I understood sales, how it worked, how people ticked, and so I was able then to take that and go from one company to another, where I ended up actually as the second top executive of a company that was small, about 10 million when I joined in revenues, and was $1 billion in retail revenues when I left and we went public, traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and it was a great story. I mean, I was happy to have a great team that I just was able to surround myself with, and it worked out great. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in corporate America. So
to go from 10 to join a company and to go from 10 million in revenue to leaving the company $1 billion in revenue, New York Stock Exchange, the whole thing. That's quite the story, right? So what industry was that in? Can we talk about all about that company and what you did there?
We can. It was actually, believe it or not, in a very niche group. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but whichever it is, it was in that, and it was actually the art publishing business. And so we had an artist. It was one artist, and he was just doing one-offs and showing his product in galleries, selling his originals, and then we began to reproduce art, and so we went from there, and we were able to take that and kind of leverage the brand. It became a brand among itself, and it's a controversial brand. Most people in art, the name of the artist is Thomas Kinkade.
Okay.
Most people in art, they either love Tom or they hate Tom, and he's no longer in this world with us, but they love Tom or they hate Tom. Either way, we did know this, his art sold, and we found ways to sell it, both through independent people who would open their own Thomas Kinkade galleries, or people who would actually just be dealers and sell many things, and then licenses. We had licenses in Hallmark and Avon and other licenses where we'd actually license the image. And so over a period of time, and this took a number of years, obviously, you don't go from 10 million to almost $1 billion in retail in 10 seconds. And if you are, you're probably doing something wrong. But so we did that. And so I was just privileged to be a part of it. I was right place, right time, and had some skill sets that perhaps could be leveraged, and had great people that we would recruit. And that's how it worked.
Yeah. What was one of the biggest obstacles of scaling a company to that magnitude?
Yeah, it's interesting because you don't really understand what it takes until you're in it. And you running a big business yourself, you understand that you're forever putting out fires, and you have to figure out where is the next thing, and you have to get people around you and hire the right skill sets. I'm a big believer of promoting from within whenever you can, and so we did a lot of that. But when we couldn't and we knew that we were out of our depth, we would have to hire the right people and pay them well to be there and teach us some of the obstacles you had to do to actually become a publicly traded company and have success in it, because it's very different than a private company. So I think some of the biggest obstacles were really understanding how to scale and stay profitable. But like wholesaling business, the margins were great. And so we had a lot of room for error in that business, the same as in wholesaling. There's a lot of room for error in wholesaling.
For sure.
And so I think that was it. It was finding the right people, making sure that you reward them well enough and that they want to be there. And so that they will put in the extra work necessary to build a company. Because it's not a 9-to-5 job when you're doing that. It's 24/7,
Yeah.
So anyhow, we got lucky, and that's how it worked.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of it is like building a phenomenal team, right? And having phenomenal people around you. I mean, from what I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey, like I couldn't have built any of this without an incredible team.
Absolutely. If you will surround yourself, and you'll find out. People ask me, okay, well, what do you want for your people? And my answer to that is simple. I want for them what they want for them. And if I can help be the impetus to getting them what they want, and I know it's kind of a cliche in our world of helping people get what they want, you'll get what you want. Well, if you do help people, they're going to produce. And if you can provide an opportunity, you get the right people, and they get committed to the cause, then whatever your cause is, in this case, we're talking about real estate, then they become loyal to you, then they like you, and that's really kind of my goal, particularly as I've gotten older. It's not about chasing the dollars, hasn't been about me chasing dollars for many years. And so I kind of have my philosophy on who I want to work with, and if they want to work with me, we kind of have that good relationship. So
after so many years of doing all the other things that you've done, like why wholesaling real estate? Like why you know what I mean?
Out of the blue.
Yeah, out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk to me about that journey. Like, how did you hear about it? Wholesaling is such a niche thing, like to your point a little while ago as well, right? Like it's a very, very specialized skill set. I mean, like I just, a lot of people don't even know what it is.
Well, the way I got introduced to it was that I have a family friend, a guy by the name of Brent Daniels. You know Brent. And I've known Brent since he's been 12. And my son, Michael, who everyone knows as Mike, they had been friends since they were 12. So Brent grew up kind of around our house, and I grew up around his house. So I watched their success. They were in real estate. And so they had a retail real estate, and they were around when the bubble happened, and boom, it blew up on them. And so I was a part of watching all of that, and it was unfortunate to watch when your kids go through that stuff. And so, but I then learned later, and obviously being a family friend, was hearing and understanding an assignment fee. Well, I was licensed now at that point, because I wanted to be able to buy my own homes or sell my own homes, get the commission, right? So that was the real reason I got licensed. So I started seeing these assignment fees and kind of hearing how it worked out, and talking to Brent and talking to Michael. And just one day I thought, I can dip my toe in this. And so a number of years ago, I dipped my toe in it, did a couple of deals, which actually we sold to a company that you're aware of here in town. That's a pretty big company. We sold to them, and we made like $25,000. They made $25,000. I thought, well, this is kind of cool, and you don't really have to ever take possession of the property. It's a very low cash business. And so that's how I found out about it. That's kind of how I stuck my toe into it. And then I kind of took a break. A company recruited me back for about a year, to do a turnaround on another business. And so then after that, I was looking for something to do. And I thought, I'm going to stick my toe into that one.
Yeah.
So I joined a company that was in that
I love that
field. Yeah.
Do you recommend for people like you, talking about the real estate agent thing for a minute, do you recommend that people get their license to do what you initially got your license to do, which was just to buy and sell your own real estate? I mean, is that, I see people sometimes that Hey, real quick, I just want you to do me a huge favor. If you're enjoying the show and you're enjoying all the amazing guests that we've been having on lately, then do me a massive favor and smash the like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you have not already. I would greatly appreciate it. It would mean the world to me, and we will be able to bring on a lot more big names if you help us out. Now let's get back to the show. They do a big deal like $1 million, $2 million, and I'm like, man, you could have made 60 grand or whatever, do you recommend that for people?
100%. And it isn't just, I think it's more about credibility. If you're going to deal with realtors, okay, and I do, our whole business model in my wholesale business is dealing with realtors. And something happens magically when you tell them you're licensed. It's not like you're one of those guys, because let's face it, in every business, whether it's our business, wholesaling business, if it's residential retail, if it's flipping burgers, it doesn't matter what business you're in, there's a certain amount of people who are not good apples. And so it kind of skews in the mind of other agents that, you're one of those wholesalers that want to, get properties really cheap and take advantage of people, but we've never bought a property from someone who didn't want to sell it to us. So as soon as I tell them I'm licensed, we have a deal right now that if it wasn't for the fact that I was licensed, we had a nice relationship, I could talk the lingo very easily, and I understand residential real estate. Without that, we wouldn't have this deal, and this deal will make us a good amount of money simply by having it. So I tell my guys and gals, guys, you should get licensed at some point. You don't have to do it right this second, but you need to get licensed. It will help you with your credibility if you're going to, because we deal with realtors. And as soon as you do that, it's very, very helpful. And
There's a couple different directions I want to go with what you just said. The first question I have for you is what's the misconception of being, you hear a lot of people, right? Because I've been a licensed agent since 2014. And you hear a lot of people who talk about like the challenges of being an agent and wholesaling. So how do you see that differently than some people that are maybe skeptical about like, well, I don't want to be an agent if I'm going to wholesale, to what?
I would compare it to in real estate. There are a lot of things you can do in real estate. You can list a home, you can be a buyer's agent, you can work with investors, you can be an investor, and all of the other things that we know exist within the realm of real estate. And so I believe that it would be a bit narrow to not look at all those other avenues as someone who has a license, because in essence, I think what you're trying to do with your real estate license is maximize your real estate opportunity and those that, if you're going to build an organization, those that go with you. So whether that you fix and flip them yourself, whether you take listings, it doesn't matter to me which part of it's all under the real estate umbrella, and all of them serve a function. In the wholesaling side, we buy homes, as you know, that people, there's a reason they don't want to have the home. And so we provide a service for them there. And we help them out of that. And I think that agents have a misconception about how that works. And I believe it's more systemic as far as the whole process. And being an agent, I can talk about this because it's a sensitive subject, which is agents kind of get trained, wholesalers bad, retailers good. Some of them do and don't work with them. And they go through a cycle, and that's why many agents only last 3 years and they're out. I think that's the average, is 3 years and they're done.
Yep.
And so I have felt, and I was around in 2007, 2008 when things blew up, I was licensed. And I saw what happened. And I worked with a few investors, and I will tell you that in that market, had it not been for investors, that would have been much worse. They were buying when everyone else wasn't. So I look at real estate more as a whole of where are the avenues you can participate in and maximize your opportunity. That's how I look at real estate. I don't look at it as this niche or that niche. I look at it as a whole.
I love that. Yeah. And that's really where our brand One Roof came from, right? Which was, I kept saying, we used to have all these different companies, and I kept telling my executive team for years, I would say, we do everything under one roof, Like we do it all under one roof, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then one day, one of my executives said, "Well, why don't we just rebrand? Why don't we see if that name's available, right?" And I said, "Well, that's genius,
Yeah, cool idea.
Cool idea, right?" But just to your point, though, it was just the idea of, hey, look, we're a one-stop shop. Like if you have a need, in the residential real estate world, then we can solve your need for you, right? I'm not saying I'm the greatest multifamily guy right now. I'm not saying I'm the greatest commercial guy right now. But in the residential world, right, we understand that world at a really high level, you know? So I love that. What do wholesalers in particular, I've talked to a lot of wholesalers that it's almost like they're afraid to go become an agent. Why do you think that is? Like they think that it's going to cause them problems.
Yeah. You know, I don't know because obviously I've never been there. I was licensed before I got into this. So I don't know. My guess, if I was guessing, if I were to say, okay, what is my best guess on? Maybe they think there's liability that comes with it. Maybe they think they have to play by certain rules, which they don't. So I don't really know, Austin. It's a great question, but I don't know the answer to it. I can only speculate because I was licensed before I ever got into this world. So hard to say for me.
It's got to be what you're talking about. I think the disclosure and the liability scares them away. Yeah,
I think it does. And then you get into in one transaction, there's a whole bunch of paperwork that has to happen. Another transaction, there's very little paperwork, and maybe the paperwork scares them off. I don't know, but you know, in my opinion, you should get licensed because if you're going to deal with realtors, particularly. Because I do think that there is a certain amount of credibility you're going to get you cannot get any other way. You can't tell them how much you know about real estate if you don't have a license, simply because it's like having a degree from wherever, Harvard. You're from Harvard. Well, doesn't mean you're any smarter or any better than the guy that went to Cal Berkeley, you know, whatever the case may be.
But people assume.
But they do assume. And they pay for it. Right?
Yeah.
And so people and firms and law firms and others, they pay a lot more because it says Harvard. Right? So I think it's a misconception too. I think on both sides. I think there's both sides, misconception, wholesalers and also realtors.
You were talking a minute ago about you love working with realtors, being that you're a wholesaler. And I would assume that means that you love when realtors bring you deals.
Absolutely.
So, you know, there's all these different strategies in the world of wholesaling to get a deal, right? I'm just like you, Brian. I love working with realtors. We do a lot of different strategies. So walk me through why you like working with realtors so much.
I think number one is that they understand the process. If you're working with good ones that understand the process, they understand the process of getting the deal from point A to the end. And as you know, there's different types of realtors you work with. There's realtors that are new and they're fresh and they don't really understand. There's realtors that have been around and they have a certain view of things. And then I think in between there is a group of realtors that we try to connect with that aren't too far into what I would call the realtor syndrome, okay? And it's not a bad thing, it just is. It was what people were taught, or they're not too new. So the paper flow is much easier. The communication, if they're good agents, if they're good realtors, the communication with their clients and with us, vice versa, is much more enhanced by working with them. They understand the process. And let's face it, there's a lot of new realtors that have to learn. I was new. I had to learn, right? There's new wholesalers that have to learn, and that's okay too. But then if you deal with and I would put wholesalers in the same way. You got the brand new ones and you got the really super experienced ones. And then in between is a group of people who have learned how to do the process. And our focus would be on that, on the wholesaling side. But on realtors, we try to get in that middle spot, not too brand new, scares them to death, and not too old that they've been doing it for as old as I am, and they're kind of set in their ways.
They got bad habits,
Yeah.
So there's the way I really view it. There's three different, I guess, let's call them avenues that you can get a wholesale deal. Okay, and I'm talking like the big buckets. Okay, there's I can get a deal from another wholesaler, right?
Yep.
I can get a deal direct to seller, or I can get a deal from an agent. Now, obviously, each one of those categories has, you know, a bunch of different options, right? So, like, for example, like working with an agent, you know, I can get a deal off the MLS, but I could also get an agent to send me a deal that's not on the MLS. It's truly off market, right? With direct to seller, there's all sorts of different ways to market directly to a homeowner and go directly to that homeowner and get a deal under contract. And then with a wholesaler, working with wholesalers, you know, there's a lot of, you know, you might be direct to the wholesaler that has the deal,
right,
or you might be the fifth wholesaler that
who knows, right? Right? Till you ask.
Between just objectively like those three, you would say that working with realtors is your favorite.
I would say because I don't have a lot of experience in the others, that yes, that would be. That said, we are going to do more direct to seller in this coming year. And our skill sets, we will improve our skill sets. As we were talking about earlier, I think you need to understand real estate and every part of it. And so I think our goal for our company is to work with more direct to seller stuff. And we will do the amount of money, we'll do the amount of training necessary and spend the money necessary to get it, because it's a very valid channel. I know people like yourself and others that make a lot of money in that. And so we just want to add that as one of the legs of the stool. We do business with wholesalers as well, and like you, we do ask questions: who holds the underlying contract, and where are you at? And I don't care where they're at, as long as I know where they're at. I don't care if they're the third assignee, as long as we know what we're dealing with. So, for me personally, I'm most comfortable with realtors. I could easily get comfortable in direct to seller because of my background of in-home sales.
Yeah.
So,
Direct to seller is a different animal. The way I've always looked at it is the agent is direct to seller. So like if possible, I would love to, I like working with agents too. I'm a big fan, right? We do a lot of deals working with agents. We get a lot of deals off the MLS, and I think it phenomenal strategy, right? But direct to seller is a lot of fun. It's just a whole different beast, because you've got to go, somebody on your team has to go, first of all, you're never going to get repeat business typically from a seller, right? So with direct to agent, they'll bring you deals over and over and over again, as you know, right? Which is a phenomenal thing. You build a relationship. They're the expert. Let them be the professional. Hey, I'll be your buyer. Just feed them to me, With the seller, very rarely will you do a deal with the seller, and the seller's like, hey, I've got an aunt that wants to sell her house. Typically not going to happen, right? So all of the negotiation, everything you do, you get one deal from that, right? And then you got to restart from ground zero and do it again, right? So it makes you wonder, for somebody watching or listening then right now, if they're brand new to the game, or they're looking to get into the game, where would you start if you were new to the game?
I think it's a matter of what are your resources. What money do you have to spend or not spend? I think that plays a big overriding role in it. When I got in wholesaling, to me, it wasn't difficult for me to have to spend money to make money. It just, I was at that point in my life. Okay. And so, but not everybody is there. In fact, I would suggest to you, most everybody is not there in wholesaling. They get in and they have a wild vision. So where would they start? I'd probably start direct to seller, the cheapest. To be honest with you, I'd knock doors, I'd cold call. I would go and I would find someone who would talk to me. I'd talk to as many of those people as I possibly could, because it doesn't cost you anything to do that. And so, again, back to something you and I were talking about earlier, which is it better to make the most money, or is it better to be the biggest? To me, it's better to make the most amount of money. Okay, so for me, I want to spend the less money. I'm brand new. If somebody said, hey, Brian, you go out and start right now, you find a way to wholesale, I'm going to go start knocking on doors of homes that look like maybe they need to be rehabbed. That's what I personally would do if I was starting at ground zero and I had no money, or next to no money, or very little money, or I wanted to expand on my current job, right, and actually find a way to break out of that job eventually. People that say quit your job and start wholesaling, you should never do that, okay? Never quit your job. You got to pay your bills. Then when you get to a certain point, maybe you make that decision, and then by that point you know what you're doing. So the answer to the question directly is I would start knocking doors and making telephone calls. That's exactly what I do, because I know how to do that.
Yeah. Do you like that? Like you the in-home, you talk about the in-home, A lot of people don't.
I don't, but
a lot of people are afraid to knock a door. What would your advice be to that person?
They're afraid to pick up the telephone. I mean, let's face it. You have to step out of your comfort zone. When I was new in the business, I told you about I was in earlier. When I was new, it was difficult to pick up the phone and call a bunch of people. It was difficult to go knock doors. And so I've always kind of found if you can have a running mate that's across the street or down the hall or going with you or wherever the case may be, knocking doors or making phone calls, I would say you just go do it, because it becomes habit. Look, like I told you, I wanted to enter that business and stay a month or two, and I stayed 10 years. I built a big sales organization, traveled all around the world, and became a big sales organization. But I wasn't making as much money as I should. And so I kind of figured out pretty early on, it's great to be big. It's better to make a better margin. How much you keep. It's about how much you keep. And so for the new person, you knock door, you go pay the price. This is not a get rich quick. No matter what anybody tells you, no matter what anybody's selling, you do not get rich quick. Can you get rich? You better believe it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, including people very, very close to me, that have created wealth from real estate, but it didn't happen
Overnight.
And it is a
Really quick, if you're a real estate agent in the state of Arizona and you're looking to join a phenomenal team, then I would love to have a conversation with you. If you're looking for an incredible culture, you're looking for lead generation, you're looking for transaction coordination, then I would love to have a conversation and see if you would be a great fit for our team, okay? So again, if you're an agent in the state of Arizona, make sure you text the number 480-418-5339, the word agent, okay? Again, 480-418-5339, the word agent. Now let's go ahead and get back to the show.
It is not an easy job, but it's simple. You just go do the work. You knock on a certain amount of doors. You talk to a certain amount of people. You talk to a certain amount of agents, and you're going to find deals. But the question I think everyone has to ask themselves, are they willing to go do that?
Yeah.
Right? If they really are willing to go do that, they'll be fine if they also, I'm going to put the caveat on this, find a mentor, someone who's willing to give you some time.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, first of all, I love door knocking and cold calling, you know.
Well, you're an anomaly.
I did that a lot, dude. When I got into the game, well, I loved the idea of, I don't know, something weird about me. I loved the idea of like, I always thought like, man, I could be the guy that doesn't get the door slammed in my face. Like I could just, I'll charm them, or I don't know. Like I just
and
it's just
did it work?
Well, no. There's people that are mean, right? That, you know, but like it's such a. I'm so competitive, I think, that I loved the idea of like every time I knock a door or make a phone call, like I can get better and I can see the progress. Like it literally the result is the measurement, right? Like if I go people would give me leads back in the day and they'd be like, Austin, go drive over, out here and have them, and I would come back with a purchase contract every time, you know? And I loved it, but a lot of people don't love it. And I think you just have to do it and continue to fail forward.
You do. You can learn to love it because when the result is X, you can learn to love to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, it's difficult to learn to do it. It's not difficult to do it. The hardest door to open is the one in your car when you have to go knock doors. It's not the one in the house, okay? They'll let you in. They'll talk to you. I could easily get very comfortable in direct to seller. And we were joking earlier about that because I said, well, I don't love it. Well, I love the results of it. And so if I love the results of it, I'm willing to do it because there's really nice people out there. You know, there's always, like we talked about, there's always a certain percentage of any business or any people that they're not nice or they're not good. And what I found in being literally knocking on thousands and thousands of doors, probably like yourself, you've built a big organization outside of these curtains here. And after knocking on thousands of doors, you only know there's about 4 or 5 things they can say to you, and you already know the answer. So it's like a play, and everybody knows their part.
Yeah.
And so if you approach it that way and you make a game of it, you know, where it's fun because you're going to come back with a contract or two. I've often said, knowing what I know about knocking doors or cold calling. If somebody said you have to sell this product. By the end of the day, they could put me in a parachute and drop me anywhere in this country, and by the end of the day, I'd have that product sold to somebody. And if people will look at it from that mindset, by the end of the day, you work through it, and then when you're brand new, that's not going to happen. But day and day and day and day, and all of a sudden, boom, you figured out how to do it, what words you use, and you learn to how people react. You learn what they're going to say, and you learn about people.
Yeah.
It's a great experience.
For sure. I love that. You were talking a minute ago about scaling and having a big operation, and you like profitability over just being big to be big, right? And we were talking a little bit about that before the show. I want to talk about that for a minute. Like, what if somebody's watching right now? Maybe they're doing 2 or 3 deals a month. They want to they think they want to go to 10 or 20 or 30 deals a month, right? But the 2 to 3 deals maybe they're doing a month right now, or 4 or 5, or however many are, they're running at a 80% margin or whatever because they don't have any overhead, right? It's just them and maybe one other person or something to that effect. Like, who should and shouldn't? Because like for me, I love being big, right? And I know I'm the anomaly, and we figured out a way to run a big highly profitable operation, right? But we also have a lot of ancillary things that we do too. We don't just wholesale, right? We do. I have a big retail team. We have a mortgage company. We have the media company. We're getting into education. Like, we have a lot of other things that we do, right? So what would your advice be for that person who they watch guys like Brent and Jameel, and they watch the big players and they think they want to go get big? But to your point, you were once big and you weren't that profitable.
Yes, and that was in a different business too. But I will tell you this: I think you can have it both ways, as long as you do it carefully. Meaning, watch your dollars, and first of all, ask yourself: there are people that are really good in just sales. That's all they're really good at, and there are people that are really good managers and sales. And so, if you're really good in sales and you're making a bunch of money, it's the dream is to go be one of these other folks, including yourself, be somebody like Austin, okay, who can do all of that. So when I say, I don't think we should be a big business. We had pretty significant franchise companies. We were their biggest person, okay, and very profitable. And so I think you can have that too. I think you just have to understand your own capabilities carefully. And when you begin to scale, you have to watch it carefully. And if you don't watch numbers, because let's face it, a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to get into the details of what's in the numbers, right? Because they're busy talking to the next person. So watch the numbers, get QuickBooks, it's cheap, have somebody or yourself enter it in there, and just watch the numbers. Just make sure you're doing it. If you like what you're doing, if you like coaching, bring on a person. They can be straight commission. If they have the same passion as you have or similar, the odds of them being successful are good. Now, in my case, I do it a little bit differently. My guys aren't on straight commission. They're on a base plus a commission because I've been afforded the opportunity to do that. So it's a little bit different when we recruit. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I think it does. Yeah, I think you have to be. Are you the right person, right? Or do you have the right partner? Or can you find the right people? Like, I don't think anybody and everybody can get big and be profitable in this particular industry. I think it's a very tough industry to do it in, and I think a lot of people, to your point, they get big and they're not making any money. Like, they're grossing $200,000 a month, but they're taking home $7,000 a month, right? And I think you've got to be really careful. But to your point, you got to watch the numbers and and I think the other part of it too is like, why do you want to be big? Yeah. Do you want to be big because you think that is what you have to do based on the people you're watching? Or do you want to do it because you're addicted to being an entrepreneur and you know what I mean? And like you wouldn't have it any other way. And, because I know a lot of people who would rather be on vacation or traveling the world. Right. And so I think you also have to know yourself and know like, what do you want to achieve in life?
It's true. And when you scale, you're not just responsible for you anymore. You're responsible for them because those folks are putting their trust in you. And you have to be there for them. And I don't care. Look, at my age, even if my phone rings at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, guess who's going to take the call? Guess who's going to answer the text? I am. You know why? Because people that put their trust in me, I owe them enough to put my trust back in them. Because while I told you my guys are on bases, but most of their money comes from commissions, right? So I would not leave them out. You have to ask yourself, are you willing to commit to actually be a leader? And when you're a leader, it requires making a sacrifice of some of your personal time. And you have to figure that out in your own life of what's your balance, okay? But you have to be there for them because people are putting trust in you. And the more that I've gotten older, people ask me, well, why did you get in wholesaling? Why are you in this business at all? Because I have retired twice, okay? So why am I? One, I was bored. Two is I found that if I could help young men and women advance in their career, which I have had some luck in my life doing, whether it's been corporate or entrepreneurial corporate people that were recruited out of college that became vice presidents at the company we talked about previous in our conversation. So if I can help younger people understand that everything they see in the news or things maybe they've learned in college maybe aren't quite what they seem to be, that there is opportunity. We live in a great country. This is a great industry. It's a great business. And if somehow I can help them do that and I profit from that, I'm okay with that. And I feel good about it and I sleep well at night.
It's really cool. Yeah. I really like that, what you said a lot. How did you become a great leader? Like, was it, did you read a bunch of books? Did you study John C. Maxwell, or was it just trial and tribulation?
I'm going to say more trial and tribulation, more learning by baptism by fire, learning what not to do. You know, if I look and I say, okay, who did I learn the most from as far as leadership? It's probably my dad, because he became top executive in a big company, but he started knocking doors too. Okay.
Wow.
And he became the top executive in another publicly traded company that Warren Buffett bought. Okay. So I learned from him this, and I think one of the things I learned from him is that if you're going to be a leader, the art of leadership to me is you have to learn how to get people to do what you want them to do, and it has to be their idea. Because people will buy into their own ideas more than they'll buy into me preaching to them. If they know that, if they can somehow buy into their own ideas and they make it think it's their idea, if you get really good at that, and not in any manipulative way, just as far as how you present yourself and how you coach them and talk to them, once it becomes theirs and they take ownership, well, then they're going to have a lot more success than me just coaching, me not coaching, me just running a training class. You know, it's much more about coaching and more about, I think, what they want for themselves. And I think you have to get inside of people to do that.
Yeah, Dale Carnegie talks about that, right?
Course, yeah.
And phenomenal advice. Would you recommend people just go read the book or go read books or listen to podcasts? Like, how do you become a great leader in today's day and age? Do you just listen to like what we're putting out, like right now?
Yeah, you do. I think this. I think that we've gone a little bit overboard on college degrees, because I think I put 3 kids through ASU and I got a $20 hat, so I was excited about that. But I put 3 kids through ASU and not one of them practiced in what their major is. Wow. Okay, so I think it's probably great for kids to go out so they have something to do. But I do think that if you take a look at, what you do after that and how do you apply that, I think that as a leader, you got to read books. You do. You have to stay reasonably well read. You got to watch people that know what they're doing, because there's only one way to learn it. It's through osmosis, and it's whether you're in this day and age, you can watch this kind of stuff and you say, hey, you know what? I think I could do that, or I could do that. When I was more growing up, there was none of this. You had to read a book, right? Or you had to go to a rally or a seminar, and so I think you also, so I would say you do a bit of all of the above. The thing you have to be careful of is you don't overdo that, because at some point you have to take action. And I know many people in my life that say, well, as soon as I do this, or as soon as I watch this, or as soon as I know how to do this, the best way to know how to do it is just go do it. Yeah. In my opinion, you go do it. You're going to figure out what works for you, what does not work for you. That coupled with all the coaching that is out there for free, or if you pay for it, you know how I feel about this. You're going to pay for coaching one way or the other, whether you write a check up front or whether you do it because of deals you missed. You're paying for coaching one way or the other. So I don't coach people. I don't charge anybody coaching, but I don't take it away from anyone who does. I think it's a fantastic service for people who want to get into this industry, because why wouldn't they leverage people who've done it and been successful like yourself, or I could name a bunch of others. It makes total sense to me, because you're going to pay for it one way or the other.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I hired a coach when I got in, you know, and I paid, at the time, it was a lot of money for me. Like, I think it was $10,000. It was, looking back, it was insignificant, but at the time, it made a big dent in my bank account. This was back a long time, 9 years ago or so. And best decision I ever made. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. There's a lot of free stuff, but my experience is most people that get things for free don't appreciate it as much as when they pay for it. Because when you pay for it, you're going to get the most out of it. And when you get it for free, you're going to learn a lot of stuff, and you're going to learn some things. But when you got to write that check, and you talked about hurting, I've done that, and I will tell you that when it hurts, you're going to pay more attention. Yeah. To that training,
even if the information was identical.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're going to.
Isn't that wild?
It's amazing. It's just human.
Yeah.
It's human instinct. It just is. I don't know why it is, but it just is. I was telling you, one thing I did learn a lot about early in my life is how people are likely to react, under certain situations. That's one of them. That is a classic example. If it's free, but if you pay, you're going to pay attention.
How did you learn all about that? Like that, like neurolinguistic programming, or like psychology, or what was that?
Well, I did, I think honestly, back to one of the things that we were talking about earlier, it really was more from life experiences and being around other successful people. I've had really I've been very fortunate in my life to be around some very successful people. I wasn't. I mean, I was knocking doors, but I was around some folks that were very successful. I worked for a gentleman who produced Michael Jackson's Thriller. Okay, he owned a company called Vestron Video, which was the only VHS video company in America.
Wow.
He became fabulously wealthy. The gentleman's name's Austin First Jr. You could Google him, and he started Vestron Video. He gave $100,000 to Michael Jackson's for Thriller. So he described it to me one time, and he was a great leader. So my paths crossed there, and he did describe this. You might find this interesting because really with Thriller being really the first real music video, really per se, was that he said it was like, I did that, I gambled, and like the heavens opened up, money was dropping in his office like every 10 seconds, and he became very, very wealthy, a billionaire. And so I learned from him some of the skill sets of leadership. It's around the people that you hang around with. Another gentleman who is actually currently Idaho's most wealthy individual, I worked for him as a vice president in his company, and I learned a lot of very good fundamentals there about the importance of messaging, about making sure that your message is clear and straight, and that words matter. When you're talking to people, you're talking to other agents, or you're negotiating a deal, what you say and the words you use are important.
Yeah.
I teach my team words are important. So look at your words, listen carefully, pause for a moment, put your thoughts together, and then use appropriate words, because words are very important and they do have meaning. And people just don't pay attention as much to that as they should.
I wonder why that is. Like everybody wants to text and do all the other junk, right? Like there's just nothing like getting on the phone and talking to another human being.
I always tell my team, look, if they text you back, you probably may have one other text. Otherwise, pick up the telephone.
Yeah. Because
here's why. I can talk to you. You and I could have a great conversation on the telephone. It's very hard on text. But when you're talking and you got a 20-some-year-old and they've texted their whole life, it's a habit. You have to learn to change the habit. And every deal I've done or we've done, frankly, requires phone conversations. You got to get inside of somebody's head. They got to know you're real, and they got to know that you're not the boogeyman. And so, I'm a big believer in phone conversations. I think it's the most important touch point you can have, except seeing them in person, which we don't see very many people in person. Because when I was with another franchise company, and we were very big, I never set foot in that state. It was all remote.
Yeah.
Not once. I never saw a house ever in that state.
Right.
So
how do you like virtual wholesaling? Like
it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in Arizona, where I'm at now, it's basically virtual. I think I've been to one house. I go out and I did it for fun. No, I've been in two houses actually. One in Scottsdale and then one over here recently. But I'll go in there for fun. But it's only to get out of the office and do my thing. But I don't have to be there. I can tell from pictures, and if you get the right people teaching you, you can tell from pictures, and you can get inside of people's heads if you're talking to them on the phone, and and you get good at reading them. So to me, personally, I don't like all the running around town. I don't want to be on the other side of town and it's Russia. I'm not going. That's me.
Yeah. Why do people overcomplicate virtual wholesaling? Like a lot of people, they I don't know what it is, but they kind of get in their head about like how difficult it is.
Yeah, I don't know why. I do know this. I know that when agents say, well, I can meet you there at this time, or I can meet you here or this, or come see the house, people freeze what to do about that. And I don't think it's all that difficult. You say, one of the nice things about doing this and understanding numbers and being able, if we get good pictures and understanding what the comps are in the area, honestly, the cool thing about my business and with you as an agent, I can make your life very easy, which is I don't have to be there. You don't have to open it for me and show it to me. I can make a decision and come up with an offer that makes sense, that is sellable if it is. I mean, obviously, if you and I both know the different categories. As long as it's in the categories of houses that you want to offer on, you have to learn to deal with the agent if they want to meet you out there. Now, direct to seller is a different ballgame, I think. I'm not sure. I think direct to seller, you probably have to go put a face to it, I would suggest, in a lot of times at least. But at least that's what I've heard. I have not really been into it, but I know with agents, once you establish the relationship, they know you don't have to see it, and you know. And what's interesting, too, about our business in wholesaling, people have an anomaly. You're going to cancel a deal a lot more than traditional wholesaling. Well, the last 4 years we've been living in Austin has been Disneyland, okay?
Yeah.
No inspections, no appraisals,
Nothing.
highest and best Monday, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Well, so nobody canceled. So for the last, so you get into this and it's like, oh my gosh, you're canceling.
Yeah.
Well, anyone that's been in, I've been licensed since 2007, you since 2014, you know, in more of a balanced market, deals cancel. Cancel at inspections, they can't agree, appraisals, somebody wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. So I don't ever apologize for that. If we have to cancel, we have to cancel. Now, so I would suggest to you that our cancellation rate is very little different, maybe better than regular traditional real estate in a balanced market.
For sure. Yeah. And like to your point of direct to seller, I don't think direct to seller can go either way, right? We've had a lot of deals. Certain deals, I think you got to go out there if you can. But you could do it over the phone too, man.
Really?
Yeah. You know, we've done 80% of our direct to seller right over the phone. Never looked at the property. Same thing.
And I'm going to take some coaching from you as I get in that channel.
Well, I mean, it's the same concept. It's the same conversation that you just were talking about with the agent, with the seller, right? And it's just, hey, you know, if you could do me a huge favor and send me pictures, or if you could do me, you get the seller a lot of times, if you have a good relationship with them over the phone, they will send you everything that you need. You know, hey,
it would make sense.
Yeah. You know, and now one could argue that you might get a deeper deal, or you might get, you know, if you're in the dining room, you know, but no, I mean, we very rarely go on appointments. Very rarely.
That's great information. Yeah. And again, you asked how I learned stuff.
Yeah.
There's a good example. You and I are sitting here talking about that. I would have never thought that. I would have thought direct seller, I got to go in belly to belly, face to face. And if that's the case, I'm going to get in direct seller faster.
Yeah. And you definitely can. And I think that going belly to belly will probably yield a more profitable deal, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be the law. Like it doesn't have to mean that either, right? If you've got to be very good on the phone. Like you can't be like, if I'm on the phone with a homeowner, I know how to build rapport over the phone, right? And I believe that I'm as good doing it over the phone as I would be in person, right? I pick up on cues. I listen. I hear the dog barking in the background. I hear what the TV playing in the background, right? I know the time of year. I hear the kid yelling in the back. Like, I can build rapport with a human being on the phone, right? As if I've known them forever, you know? A lot of people I don't think are that good. Some people are. Some people are better than me, right? But if you're good on the phone, you can do it over the phone. If you're not good on phone, you should probably go in person.
Yeah. That makes sense. And and the fundamentals apply. I mean, if you get into the world of real estate or sales in general, fundamentals always apply.
Always.
You know, which is the grinders make it.
Yep.
The grinders will, you know, it's you have to grind. That's just our business. We grind. I mean, your people out here, they work very, very hard. My people work very, very hard to get a certain amount of deals. In residential real estate, same thing. You got to grind. And so you do that. You're talking about getting good on the phone. Once you get good on the phone, I personally don't think that's natural. Personally, my own opinion is it's learned with some natural ability. But it's learned.
For sure.
I don't believe there's any born salesman. I've never believed that. I was told I was a born salesman my whole life, and I was like, okay, well, they would tell me these certain sales techniques, and I was thinking, that doesn't make sense. And one of them in particular that always kind of drove me crazy when I was really young is they'd say, well, the first one that talks loses. And you know, you've heard that phrase, right? And I thought, well, what does that even mean? And how does that work? Because I couldn't figure out when that was, right? Well, I figured out when you ask a question that requires, it's a buying question that requires an answer, I teach my people, and I then learn, that's when you have to be quiet. Because when you're quiet in conversations after asking a question, they will continue to talk, and you want them to continue to talk because they will tell you everything that you need to know in order to get that deal, if you will listen to them.
Agreed.
Okay. People that want to talk all the time and tell them, this is my buy box, and this is what I do, and this is how it works, and and they're not busy. Like if someone asks me a question or they ask my team a question, you answer the question and then you ask a question back and you listen. Because they will tell you everything you need to know about what's going on there, provided you're asking the right questions.
They sure will. Every single time.
Every time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think, what would you say the biggest thing, why do people struggle the most in wholesaling? Like what's something that you've had to learn and get good at in particular when it comes to wholesaling real estate? Like what's a big challenge that people continuously run into over and over and over again in the industry that we're in, do you think?
Honestly, Austin, I don't know that it's any different than most any sales industry. I think that you're going to hear a certain amount of rejection. And I think that if I were to say, what do I hear over and over and over, it would be the price is too low. Well, obviously it is. You don't have a motivated seller. And I think one of the things that I think people get most frustrated dealing with agents or dealing with people is that if you're dealing with agents, a lot of times they are making decisions for their clients that they haven't run by their clients. Okay, and you and I both know, being licensed, your job is to run it by your client, right?
Fiduciary.
Exactly, your fiduciary. That's all part of what you sign up for. And so a lot of agents, well, that's too low. They'll never go for that. Well, to get a new person over that, which is you're going to hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, to a point of actually making the deal is a process. And so I think the people struggle the most are people that hear that, because when I look on, and I follow a lot of different websites, and I hear a lot of, and I watch and read a lot of things that people are saying, and they say things like that. Well, I hear this, and I hear that, and I'm thinking, okay, well, you're going to hear that, so you need a mentor, is what I'm thinking, right?
Yeah.
So you need a mentor that will teach you it's okay to hear that. In fact, when you hear it, and I know this is kind of a cliche, you get closer to where you want to be, which is to making a deal. And so I think it's that. I think they hear that, and I think it's those types of things they hear that it's difficult, and particularly when you're by yourself. If you're by yourself and you don't have a mentor or whatever the case may be, it's hard to continue to grind. You know it. You've done it. I mean, you've built a bigger sales organization. It didn't start that way.
Nope.
I have a good-sized sales organization. It didn't start that way. It started with me and one other person. Then I hired another one and another one. And so...
And I've screwed it up a million times along the way too, right? And I'm pretty open about that all the time. I've hired well over 1,000 people in my career. Well over 1,000.
Of course.
And and we have 70. So what does that tell you? It tells you that 930 of them didn't work out,
I'm the same way. Look, I was really, really not good at recruiting people for a long time. Until I figured out that I had the position they wanted, and they had to sell me of why that they are the right person for me. And so I'm the same. I used to travel around the country and train hundreds of people a night, 4 nights a week. I'm not proud of this. I'm a million miler on Delta. Okay, I'm not proud of it. I've been too much time on airplanes, right? But I've trained and trained and trained, and I've recruited and recruited. And let's face it, not everybody's cut out for any job. Whether it's a doctor or whether it's this business, it doesn't matter. If you're not cut out for it, you're not cut out for it. There's nothing personal. You're just not. And there's a certain type of person that's cut out for what we do. And if you are, and you work hard, so first you got to be cut out for it, and you work hard, okay, and you're willing to learn, then those things can be magical.
Right, they can, very much so. Yeah, I'm not cut out to be a doctor, I can tell you that much.
Me either.
I see blood. I don't like that. I'm not a big fan of that, Yeah, 100%. I think that it's an interesting industry. I love the industry of wholesaling. I think probably the best place for anybody to start if they're looking to get into real estate. I always say that, right? If you want to get into the game, if you watch $1 Million Listing and you see Josh Altman or whatever, I always tell people, I'm like, just start as a wholesaler, right? And then if you want, go become an agent, right? And or you can become an agent and wholesale simultaneously, and then work your way up. Learn the game, though. Learn the game. Make the calls. Get the door slammed in your face.
It's such a great business. Yeah, it is. It's such a great business, and if you're willing to get in and learn it, if I had people say, "Do you have regrets in life?" And that's one of the questions here. Do you have any regrets in life? I really don't, because I've had my share of successes and failures, a lot of them. Particularly when I was younger. I mean, I was arrogant, and I had failures because I wouldn't listen, right? And I didn't listen to good coaching, right? I was going to do it my way. And my way works sometimes, but But it's a great business. What other business? If I said there was a regret, I wouldn't call it a regret. But if I would have found this 20 years ago,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah.
It would have been not a game changer financially because I'm fine financially. Okay, but I would have had a lot more fun than being in corporate America. Corporate America is a great experience, but you're still in corporate America.
Yep.
You're working for somebody else. And there are times when you're a big company, you're flying around in a private jet, that's really cool, and this and that and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, when you're responsible for yourself and you own your own business, it's a lot more fun.
Yep.
Okay. I was lucky that the big business we built, the chief executive, I was the executive vice president, second in command. The chief executive was my best friend. So I kind of did what I wanted to do, but you still had corporate rules you had to play by. That's not the case here. You have to play by moral rules and ethical rules in our business, but you're not answering to anybody but you.
Yeah.
You're not answering to a board of directors.
Right.
Who wants the stock price to go up, for example.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so it's great business. There's very few businesses like this that you can get the kind of margin that you get, because here's the why that's so important.
Yeah, talk to me about the margin.
Yeah, it's so important. And most people say, well, sadly, a lot of people don't know what a margin is, frankly. I mean, it's true. You talk about a margin, it's real simple. It's how much money do you have to play with that you keep, and so.
So gross income minus.
Minus some expenses equals your margin.
Okay.
Really quick, if you're a real estate agent in the state of Arizona and you're looking to join a phenomenal team, then I would love to have a conversation with you. If you're looking for an incredible culture, you're looking for lead generation, you're looking for transaction coordination, then I would love to have a conversation and see if you would be a great fit for our team, okay? So again, if you're an agent in the state of Arizona, make sure you text the number 480-418-5339, the word agent. Okay, again, 480-418-5339, the word agent. Now let's go ahead and get back to the show.
So, well, actually, gross income minus, it could be, it depends on how complicated your P&L is. If you have cost of goods or other things, SG&A, that kind of stuff. But for us, it's real simple. What'd you pay for a property? What'd you sell it for? That's your gross profit. That's your gross margin. And then what are the expenses against that? That will give you a pre-tax number, okay? So because you're in wholesaling and even scaling, in my opinion, and I don't know yet to the size you're at, but in my world, it's still a 7-figure business. And if I'm not keeping 55% of that, then I'm doing a bad job.
Yep.
Okay? When I was with a much bigger company, if you were keeping 13% of it, you were lucky.
Wow.
Okay? Pre-tax.
Yeah.
Okay? But it was much bigger. But here, 50, 55, and had I not been paying a royalty in one case, it would have been 70.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Even with people. Okay? So you have to manage your way carefully. There is a lot of room for error when you have a high margin. There's a lot of room for error. You can do a lot of things wrong because there's a lot of room for error. When you have a very small margin, most businesses are small. You get into the furniture business, something like that, very small margins relative to what we do. And so you have to really be much more careful on certain things. You can make a lot of mistakes in wholesaling and still be very successful.
What are some of the other, what would you say the average margin is in the world of business and entrepreneurship? I mean, that's a really tough question to answer.
Pre-tax, you're talking about. Depends what industry you're in. In the software industry, it's much higher.
Of course.
Software industry. You get into hard goods, you get into retail, it's much lower. They have typically in retail what's called a turnkey. You pay $1 for something, you retail it for $2. That's called turnkey. So in that world, they're much smaller. So I don't know that it's fair to say what the average is. I will tell you this. What I do know in my business life is I've never seen margins like this.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
Never.
I haven't either.
It's incredible.
I'm used to seeing probably 10 or 20% margin.
That would be a great margin if you're at 20%.
Yeah.
For most businesses.
Right.
They'd be super happy and the shareholders would be ecstatic.
Yep.
In every business. In fact, every business. If you could hold 20% margins, it'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, which is wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're like you. We operate 50 north of 50% margin.
Yeah, and you have to. And I'm not really shy about sharing my information with people. I'm a believer you share it. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm a believer you say, here's your margin, or maybe here's how much gross profit you did, and here's how much money you made. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. We're all capitalists.
Yep.
Okay, and we do this for fun, and we do it to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And the more people we can give the same opportunity to, the better.
Yeah.
I don't care about competition in the markets. I mean, I could care less. We cooperate. Your company and my company cooperates. We got a couple deals right now that between us, we'll be making more than 6 figures on those 2 deals.
Sure.
Way north of that, frankly.
For sure.
So, I mean, I think you can cooperate with other people in your market. I think you're crazy not to, frankly.
Agreed.
If you're trying to do it all yourself and you're trying to protect this little thing that you think, there's so many homes out there, there's so many people, cooperate with people.
You got to collaborate.
You got to.
Yeah. I don't know why people don't more.
I have no idea, but maybe it's a mindset. Maybe they just think that it's their pie they want to play in. Personally, I will tell you, last year we had a 7-figure business, and I can tell you 23% of it was cooperating with people like yourself.
Wow.
23%.
Very
That's
cool.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
I had another outlet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be more, I'd imagine it'll just continue to be more and more
Of course.
as time goes along, right? Yeah.
We have a great relationship that I didn't know you 6 months ago. Okay. We have a great relationship. Your company and mine has a terrific relationship. I have a great relationship with other people here in town and other places.
Yep.
And the more you can cooperate, the more it's going to be for everybody. Because the more successful we all are, it just breeds success.
Yeah, I love that. What do you think about the market? I always ask
Currently?
everybody. Yeah. I mean, like nobody's got a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Where are we headed?
Well, I will tell you this. This will sound naive, but I believe it. It doesn't matter to me. And I'll tell you why. I'm either going to have more acquisition people or I'm going to have more disposition people. The last 4 years, you had to have a lot more acquisition people than you did disposition people. It took a lot more work to get deals.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot less work to sell deals.
Right.
Okay. Now, not so sure, because this market that we're currently in, where we're sitting in this town right now, it's kind of heated back up a bit, right? When you take a look at average days on markets, that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit like that. So I don't personally, my opinion is either side, whether the market slows down or heats up, you just have to understand and watch it and track the data, okay? And understand you need to put more resources towards disposing of properties or acquiring properties. It's more important, and if you're buying and holding, as long as it's long-term, I don't think it matters, as long as it's long-term. If you got to flip it, then you have to be a bit more careful, okay? In my opinion, on the flip side of things. You have to be a bit more, where do I think it's personally headed? I think it all depends on what happens with the next administration, and I think there's a lot of things that the voters of America can control. And if they control them and they make good decisions, which is difficult for it's just difficult. And it's very complex. So I don't know that anyone has the answer. Nobody saw 2008 coming till the last second, where banks bailed and some of the brokerage firms bailed in New York City. Nobody knew that was coming. Nobody. And so I don't know that anyone will ever know. What I do know is in either event there is place for investors. Okay, and I've told you about in 2008. If it had not been for investors, the market would have collapsed even worse.
Sure.
They were the only ones buying. So. Where is it going? I don't know. Interest rates are up and down a little bit, within a half a point here and there. And so I don't know where it's going. And honestly, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it because it doesn't make me any money. And it doesn't make my guys any money. What makes them money is doing what we know how to do. And then we deal with problems. We're in the problem-solving business.
Right.
We'll deal with that problem if we have enough on a day-to-day basis. I'll deal with that problem or challenge when it presents itself, if it presents itself.
I love that answer. Great perspective on that. What do you think about like the Silicon Valley Bank and all that? I mean, do you pay attention to any of that? Or?
I very much so. I pay very close attention to it. Can I translate what it means? No, but I can have my own opinions of what it means. I do believe that the banks will consolidate. The bigger banks will. My opinion is the bigger banks will make the smaller banks go away, much like when the savings and loans, you weren't probably old enough at that time, respectfully.
Yeah.
But the savings and loans all went belly up, and the other banks absorbed those customers and moved on. So I don't know. But if you get into a bigger picture thing, I have my opinions on that are neither here nor there, But as long as America is the world's currency and all the other dollars revolve around our currency, or all the other money forms revolve around our currency, it's a huge advantage economically for America and for people like us. If someone else were to somehow become that, that's a whole different discussion. Then, frankly, it doesn't matter.
Then we'd turn into the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah,
We go down that rabbit hole. We'll be here till 4 or 5 o'clock tonight, right? Yeah, I completely agree. I'm actually a really big believer in everything you just talked about. I actually don't really even watch the news at all, and I don't pay attention to it, and I never have. I'm a firm believer in, and a lot of people might not like it, but I'm a firm believer in you create your own economy.
Yep.
We live in America, like the land of the free, right? And you have, I believe anybody in the world, anybody in America can go and do anything they put their mind to. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. I really believe that. And I think that everything that is a lot of what is going on in the world is just a big distraction.
I think you're 100% right. And I would even point to you as an example, or me as an example. You could say, okay, what's the difference between Austin and person X?
Mm-hmm.
It's what you do each day and your habits you form and how you go about your work. Or maybe it's because you're introduced into something. What's the difference between me at my age and someone who's my age who draws a Social Security check?
Yeah.
Well, it's choice. There's no other way to put it. It's choice. Sometimes it's really unfortunate circumstances. Many times it's choice.
Yep.
And the choices that you make have repercussions. The earlier out in your life, age-wise, you figure that out and take control of it, the better.
Yep.
And so I'm like you. I believe you make your own. And I
agree.
But unlike you, I do, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I do have a routine each morning. I do get up and I read fiction for probably 45 minutes and have a cup of coffee. Then I look at all the news.
Yeah.
I at least want to see what's going on in the financial sector, and then I try to stay out of the politics side because it's maddening. But so I won't read much of that, but then I'll do that and do my shtick and get my exercise and get going for the day.
Yeah.
So I do stay abreast of it. I do watch the banking stuff. I find it's interesting. I look for any clues, but it's still not going to affect my business.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be one thing if I held 200 or 300 homes. I've held plenty of rental properties in my past, but if I had 200 or 300 homes, I might be looking at it more carefully, or, making decisions differently, but I don't. And that's a beautiful part about wholesaling.
For sure.
You're in and out of deals quickly.
100%. Talk to me about your hat.
Well, my hat says Rocket Transactions on it. That's the name of our company. And so my team has that and T-shirts. And so we threw this logo together when we kind of separated from a franchise company. And it was the name of our company within that franchise company. So that's all it is. It's just a hat.
Yeah.
You can see it, read it, go to the website. rocketaz.com, and just kidding.
Are you doing any software or anything like that right now? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Sure. I will tell you one of the things that, as far as one of the things that I find important, and I think that you would agree with this, and most anyone who's had some success in this, one of the things that new people don't understand until they either get a mentor that teaches them or they stumble onto it is the importance of follow-up. If you don't have good follow-up, you're not going to get the deals you should be getting. I'll give you a good example. You and I are doing a deal together right now, Pine Street.
Yep.
Okay, and that was one through follow-up. We use it's called One CRM. It's a contact management system. It's very simple, but we use that one, and it's very inexpensive. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it allows people, particularly if you're brand new and you're doing direct-to-seller. I know that they have a direct-to-seller thing where it's like cheap. It's whatever. It's $100 and some a month, and you can actually track what's going on. You can set tasks and notes. So on the Pine property, that was nothing. That was like in December. This gal brought it to us. They said they want $340,000 for this property, right? And so, or $350 or $360, whatever it was. There was some amount, which of course we weren't interested at that price. Well, about 2 weeks ago, we're doing just some follow-up calls, which are super important, and they found out they wanted a whole lot less than that. And then we found out it needed more work, and then we retraded it and got a whole lot less than that. And then you guys then got involved in it. And so had we not had the follow-up, I could tell you that deal after deal after deal. Last year I could go through all of the deals. I can tell you to the numbers that I can literally tell you that, and I'll go off memory here, about 32% of our deals were purely from follow-up months later, a couple months later. It's a lot. And you can put that into math on a 7-figure number. What does that mean? So if you don't have the follow-up, I'm not getting those deals. Someone else is going to get them because people, one thing you know and I know and anyone who's been in this business knows, people will sell when they're ready to sell. And if you're touching them at the right time, you don't know when that is. Could be they're not ready to sell, and then all of a sudden they are ready to sell. That's why you got to follow up, and you follow up. And our business, our company is really good at follow up. And I think if you're good at follow up,
you'll win.
You win.
Yeah.
Always.
So you built a software that allows you to do that at a high level.
Yes, and so we actually designed it. It gets hosted by a major software hoster, just like if you do a website, it's hosted by WordPress, same type of thing. So we didn't have to write the code for it. We just wrote what has to happen, for you to get a deal and the follow up and the touch points and all the things that have to happen automatically. It's automatically happening in the background. So if a person's brand new and they're just getting started, whether in the stuff that we developed, whether they're doing realtor outreach or whether they're doing direct-to-seller outreach, like most people, if they're smart or if they're approaching this business correctly, they have another job. They have something else they're doing and they want for more. So when they come home from that job using contact management system that's inexpensive, they have things in their box to do and follow up to do. They're not just starting out, hey, I got to call again today all day long. Because in their box is going to be people who've reached back out. Or, you have a different sequence. Say that you've done a text campaign. You have one sequence, sequence 1 comes in and then, 3 or 4 days later, sequence 2. And all of a sudden it's a bit like fishing. Okay. Yeah. And you keep fishing, you keep throwing a rod in and then a fish hops on, and the fish, not in a bad way. That sounds like it's bad, so I don't mean it that way. It's just the analogy because I fish. But so you get home, you've been working in your box. You got 8 or 10 tasks that you can do. And you do these 8 or 10 tasks. Next thing you know, you got those compounding with your lead outreach. That equals money. It's as simple
every
as
time.
Every time. It's as simple as that. And so, but most that I know of new wholesalers, they don't know the importance of that. And if you're going to spend money on something, and you know how I feel about coaching, you spend it one way or the other. But I also feel, secondly, as importantly, is the ability to track people you've talked to, because you can make notes in there that says things like, whatever, birthdays XYZ, or they're thinking they're selling because of XYZ. So when it pops up and you see this task, you're looking at the notes, you remember their conversation before, and you call them and say, oh, Austin, I want to check back with you. I remember you told me XYZ, back in March or back in January, and I just want to touch base with you, see how you're doing, touch base, and see if your situation's changed. So if you do that and you get good at that, and you get good at learning, your chances of success just, in my opinion, go through the roof. Without follow-up, our business would not be at all what it is.
I think they say the fortune is in the follow-up.
Agreed.
Right? And, man, that couldn't be more true. Yeah. So what do you have? What's one thing on there that we didn't talk about that you wish I would have asked you?
Hold on. Let me check. I got my notes here.
What's a thing that you wish I would have asked?
I don't know that I wish you would have asked this, but I do believe something very, very deeply. I think there's a huge difference between excitement and between enthusiasm. You hear a lot, and I'm not picking on people who use it because my dear friends use it, okay? I'm excited. This is exciting. There are a lot of things that are exciting. But my analogy is, if you've ever, and you may probably never have, I've been to one. If you've been to an Amway meeting, okay, Amway's a great company. They're the biggest direct selling company on the planet. Great success story. Don't love their compensation plan, but it's a great success story. But if you go to one of their meetings, the music's pumping, and there's people that are excited, and they're doing this, and they were at one point waving checks and this, and you leave there and you're all excited, okay, and you go home and you're going to do it, and you're going to make a plan, and you're going to do it, and you go home and you go to bed, and you're laying there in bed, and you think to yourself, what did that guy say again?
Yeah.
That's excitement.
Yeah.
Okay. Enthusiasm comes more down within you. If you have enthusiasm within you, which is a form of excitement, but it's more real because it's deeply embedded in you. If you have enthusiasm for what you do, this is my opinion again, then you will make it through the tough times. You will get over the humps when you hit a cold spell. If you have excitement wears off. It's fleeting. It goes. It's you see this. It's all really exciting. It's fun. It's why wrestling matches and football and all the dancing and all the noise and stuff, that's excitement. Enthusiasm is when it's quiet. And inside of yourself, you're thinking, this is good. This is right. This is why I do it. That would be something. And the other thing that I think people should be very careful of in this business is when you get a big deal, don't sit on your laurels. I had a guy hired one time, nice man. He got an $89,000 deal his first week. It was the best thing that ever happened to him and the worst thing that ever happened to him because he didn't realize how much more work it took to get that. He got it, right?
Right.
But I think excitement versus enthusiasm is really important. You believe deep, you can do it, and you're willing to pay the price when all the other stuff is turned off and it's you and it's quiet and it's dark. You either believe you can do it or you believe that you cannot. And, and that, to me, is important.
Phenomenal point. Yeah, I love that. I never thought about it that way at all. And I used to be a part of multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
So
great business. But
I've been the guy, though, to be all hyped up, and I think we all have, right? To be all hyped up. And in the moment, you're jacked out of your mind, and then you go back and you go home, you lay down, you wake up the next day, and you don't remember a dang thing. You know,
now
you're
what?
Like, what do I do? Yeah, where do I begin? You know.
Yeah, enthusiasm brings with it training. It brings with it, I think, getting with other people that are like-minded, and I think it's more of a calming thing. It's not the up here. You and I both know this business can be like this, and it is going to be like this at times. And for me, the key to successful people who make it in long term is they avoid the super highs, they avoid the super lows, and they learn to celebrate their successes, and they learn to not dwell too much on their failures. And they try to find a balance right kind of in the middle versus really high and really, really low. The people that go high and really, really low have a very difficult time making it in this business.
Very difficult. Yeah, I used to draw that on a piece of paper. I would draw this kind of like journey, right? Of like this, like, right. Let's just say the journey looked like that right there. And then I'm like, your emotions have to be right here.
Yes.
Right. As you go through like the journey of entrepreneurship. And obviously you've probably seen the thing on Facebook or Instagram where you're like going backwards and, but that is so true, right?
It is.
You got to be level headed.
It's a core fundamental thing you have to have. I think, frankly, to be honest with you, in life, it's like relationships. I've been super blessed, okay? I've been married 40 plus years. I have 3 terrific kids and 4 terrific grandkids. And part of that is the way you stay married that long, not that I'm any expert at it. Okay, I went through my ups and downs in my relationship, but I adore my wife. She still kind of likes me. And we avoid the real highs and the real lows, and you kind of find your groove. And whether it's in business or it's a personal relationship, you're going to have your challenges. That's just the way it is. And if you figure out, and I was fortunate, I met my wife when I was really young. And so we kind of figured out what was worth fighting about or not worth fighting about. And what I found out was most things weren't worth fighting about. And I also found out I probably would be the one to apologize, so I may as well get over it, right?
Right, get over it
and move on, right?
I love that. I love that. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today, Brian. I know we've been here for a little while and you're busy, and I appreciate your time. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you and talk to you or work for you, work with you, connect with you, do a deal with you, whatever?
Sure. I would give them my personal cell number. They can call me directly at 602-821-2936, 602-821-2936. Call me anytime, or if you've got deals or if you just want to hook up and you're dispoing deals, whatever the case may be happy to talk to you anytime. You can get a hold of me there, or you can go to my website. If you're interested in any kind of the follow-up stuff we talked about, that's just onecrm.com.
Onecrm.com.
Yeah, and I think in your case, because of our relationship, if they want to join, they just do onecrm /OneRoof, and then they're going to get a discount. So
perfect.
If they have any interest in it, I think that honestly, it's a great opportunity for people to use it, and I strongly suggest they do that. But be happy to talk to anybody anytime. I'm very free with my time.
I love that.
So
I
think people should be.
And I'll put that link and everything down in the description below so they can just go click on that link.
Cool.
And I'll put your information down there as well so they can just go see it there. And appreciate you taking the time.
Great having, great to be here, and appreciate you spending the time with me as well. I love what you have going on here. You have such a terrific organization, such really nice people. I have good relationships, as you know, with a whole number of people out there. You have a great place.
I really appreciate that.
Congratulations. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it means the world. Took a long time to get here, but we're here.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We're just getting warmed up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you can have some excitement and some enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly. I got a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, have a little of both.
I love it.
All
Well,
right.
thank you again. Yeah. Hey, if you're still watching on YouTube, do me a huge favor and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you have not already. Drop a comment down below. And if you're listening, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star review. We'll link everything down below. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.